Every racetrack speaks a language your suspension has to understand. And if you get it wrong, you're not just slow, you're broken. The circuit at Monaco demands one conversation. The street bumps of Baku demand another entirely. This weekend, we're watching teams make impossible choices. Stiffer springs mean faster corners, but brutal vibration that tears apart your car and your driver. So how do engineers read a track's personality and rebuild their machines in just 48 hours? In Formula One, suspension setup isn't a luxury, it's survival. Get it wrong and you're fighting physics itself. A setup too soft bleeds precious tenths in high-speed corners, but one too stiff will bounce your tires off the track and your spine through your seat. The teams that read a circuit's personality fastest, that understand whether to sacrifice cornering grip for reliability, are the ones collecting points when others are in the garage replacing broken parts. This is where weekend preparation becomes ruthless. Engineers have 48 hours and zero margin for guessing games. We're about to see how the world's best teams decode a track, rewrite their setups mid-week, and make peace with the fact that speed and survival sometimes speak different languages. Imagine your car as a conversation between two forces locked in permanent argument. Aerodynamics demanding the chassis stay absolutely flat, and the road screaming back with bumps that want to throw it skyward. On a smooth circuit like Monza, those bumps are whispers. The track is almost a billiard table. A stiff suspension keeps the aerodynamic platform stable, the downforce plant steady, and the tires planted in their optimal window where grip lives. But roll into Monaco or Singapore, streets that were paved decades ago, rutted by decades of traffic, and suddenly softness becomes your friend. Those same stiff springs that worked yesterday will now bounce the tire violently off the surface with every pothole, destroying contact patch and shredding grip in the corners that matter most. Here's the physical reality teams fight every weekend. A tire needs consistent pressure against the road to generate grip. It's called the contact patch. When your suspension is too stiff and a bump hits, the tire literally leaves the surface, floating helplessly for a fraction of a second. In that instant, you've got zero grip. And on a street circuit at 150 miles per hour, zero grip means a barrier is your next appointment. But here's the cruel paradox. Soften the springs and you lose the aero platform in fast corners. And now you're slow everywhere else. Dampers, the shock absorbers, add another layer of agony. They control how quickly the suspension compresses and extends, and the wrong setting will make your car either plow understeer or twitch oversteer depending on throttle input. Get them wrong and the driver can't trust the car to obey. Temperature matters too. A soft spring feels compliant in cool morning practice, but as track temperatures climb past 40 degrees Celsius, that same spring feels stiffer because the rubber is stiffer. By qualifying in the heat, your setup has fundamentally changed from what you tested 8 hours earlier. This is why you see engineers huddled with telemetry screens at 3 in the morning, not because they love insomnia, but because reading a track's bumps and predicting how heat will affect stiffness requires the precision of a surgeon and the instinct of a gambler. The 2016 Monaco Grand Prix gave us a perfect case study in this nightmare. Lewis Hamilton, running Mercedes' stiffest setup of the season to hunt Sebastian Vettel's Ferrari, hit the bumps on the Portier corner, just a fraction too rigid, and lost the rear. He slid into the barriers, out of the race, and suddenly his championship buffer evaporated. That same weekend, his teammate Nico Rosberg, running a marginally softer damping setup, threaded the needle perfectly. He could trust the car through those same rutted streets because his suspension was forgiving enough to keep all 4 tires kissing the asphalt, even when the circuit fought back. Rosberg won Monaco that year. Hamilton's stiffness cost him not just points but momentum. Jump forward to the 2021 Abu Dhabi season finale. Red Bull's suspension philosophy, notoriously stiff to maximize downforce platform, met Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes, which had dialed in a setup that balanced aero-rigidity with enough vertical compliance to survive Yas Marina's bumpy back section. In those final laps, as both drivers pushed to the absolute limit, Hamilton's car never once betrayed him over the bumps. These weren't races decided by qualifying pace or strategy alone. They were decided by engineers who understood that reading a track's scars, every pothole, every resurfaced section, every groove worn into tarmac by 30 years of racing, and predicting how heat and rubber degradation would change that setup, was the difference between a podium and a crash. That's the war every Friday morning when the trucks roll into a new circuit. Your suspension isn't just part of the car, it's your negotiation with the road itself. So here's a thought experiment. Imagine you're an engineer at a top team and you have to choose, not weeks in advance, but Friday morning, between two setups. Setup A is rock solid, maximizes your downforce platform, and should be fastest on a perfectly smooth circuit, but it's brittle over bumps. Setup B gives up maybe 0.2 of peak downforce, but your tires stay planted no matter how angry the asphalt gets. Which do you gamble on when rain forecast for Saturday morning means the bumps could shift by 0.5 centimeter? That's not hypothetical. That's the choice teams make every single weekend, and one wrong call can cost you a championship. 3 things to carry with you. First, suspension stiffness is never one answer. It's a conversation between engineer and asphalt. Second, the margin between victory and retirement often comes down to reading that conversation correctly before anyone else does. And third, the teams that win aren't the ones with the stiffest setups. They're the ones who listen to the track and adapt. So here's your mission. Tell us in the comments which circuit do you think demands the most brutal suspension choices and why. And if you want more of this inside paddock engineering breakdown, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Thanks for spending this time with us on the edge of physics and strategy.